part of the routine of drawing out comb, they'll throw in a queen cup here and there. So if you see a queen cup, it's nothing to be alarmed about. Doesn't mean they're getting ready to swarm. Doesn't mean they're going to supersede. Doesn't mean there's something wrong with the queen. It's just part of the routine. So, but if they start drawing out wax on the cell, making the cell wall, and putting royal jelly in there, and there's a larva in there, then it means they're going to supersede or they're going to swarm. Swarm cells, queen cells that are associated with swarming are usually along the bottom bar or along the top bar like this one. Supersedure cells are generally in the middle of the frame somewhere. Supersede means that they're going to get a new queen. So when they supersedure cells means that there's, for some reason, they're not happy with their old queen.
So Stan, what do you do if you see that?
Should we let them?
Yeah, so if you
do you just let them continue? Or?
Usually I do. I just let them because I don't know. Maybe the bees know something that I don't. The old queen looks good. The brood pattern looks fine. Sometimes they'll just lay a few frames of eggs and then they'll start over. So I usually I think I'm smart enough to know that the bees know what they're doing without me. So I'll just let them do it. But it will slow you down for a minute. So here we go back to, here we're going to analyze. Now we're going to use the information we got about the life cycle of the bees. So it takes 2 weeks for a new queen. It takes another week for her to get mated. Another week. So if you figure out an average there, if you were raising queens, 29 days before they've got a new workforce going. So we don't see any larvae in there. We see some capped over brood. All the brood is almost capped over. So that means by the time they've got a new queen 1 month from now, the nurse bees, the house bees in there will be probably 3 weeks old till the last of the eggs that she laid hatches out. We want young bees in there. We don't want those worker bees, the nurse bees and the house bees, to be too old. If they get too old, then they're not as good at feeding the young bees. So not only are we missing a queen for a month, slowing things down, we also don't have the age of bees, the nurse bees, that we would prefer. So bees are good at pitching in. You know, you read the chart on all the different duties of the worker bees and what age they do those things, nurse bees, house bees, foraging bees, and what they're foraging for, and the ages they go out and do those. So if they don't have all the ideal age of bees for all those different chores, the older bees can go back to, they can mix up the baby formula. Their pharyngeal glands that mixes pheromones in with the bee food, they can get those going again, even though the older bees, it's somewhat atrophied a bit, so they can do that, but they're not as good at it. We want bees of all ages, all duties, all at the right time. So it slows things down. Now we're starting with, if I had a colony that had 2 boxes full of honey and they're going to supersede, we could get a new queen in there, and the bees, other bees would carry on. There's so many of them you probably wouldn't even notice. Wouldn't miss a bee. But now this was a package 5 weeks ago. So package bees, they're going to dwindle down from 2 pounds until the first round of brood hatches out in about 3.5, 4 weeks. They're going to dwindle down from 2 pounds down to about 1.5 pounds. And then they're going to have a population explosion, because at 3 weeks is when the new first round of brood starts to emerge. Then they have got some new bees in there. Now the new bees, the new bees are going to be nurse bees for about 1.5 weeks, house bees for another 1.5 weeks. So it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks before we have any more workforce going out foraging. So if we let this one go, we don't do anything about it, just let that new queen emerge in a couple of weeks, then we've been dwindling down in workforce, bees that are out foraging, bringing any contribution into the hive. We're going to dwindle down even further by the time they gaining momentum. So in a package, a newly installed, it's not a good thing. Well, if I could find that queen and she looks good, I'd be tempted to wipe out those queen cells and let them stick with that old queen if they would. Come back and look at it later. If the queen's failing, then maybe let them start over, take a frame of brood and eggs out of another colony, shake the bees off, put it in that one to give them a little boost so they don't lose their momentum. And if they want it again, then to try again to raise another queen, maybe I let them. Or if I have some other queens, if you have lots of bees, then here's the solutions get easier to them, because chances are I've got other bees that are doing that same thing, and I've got queens that are, instead of just being fed the royal jelly, I've got some that are all ready to hatch out in another colony. I take one of those out of another colony that's ready to hatch, put that frame in there. If there was a number of queen cells in there, they could sacrifice a queen cell or two. Usually they make several. They don't just usually do one queen cell and take a chance on one queen not making it. There'll be a bunch of them. Then the new queens can fight it out, decide which one's going to win. All right, so what are we going to do over here? There's enough bees in there. They look good. There's, there are 5 frames, and there's a lot of bees. That queen that was in there, or still is, did a good job. I don't think they'd lose too much momentum if I just let it go, let them raise new queens. So I think maybe I'll leave it. That's the problem with that one in the corners too. All right, so you want to talk about something else for a minute, and I'll go get this frame and bring it over and show everybody what it looks like. See inside the cell. So now if the old queen's just fine, once those are capped over and that new queen's developing, she should come along and say, hey, what do you guys think you're doing? Chew a hole through that and sting the new queen being killer before she has a chance to hatch out. So that could happen. So maybe I would leave this one alone. See the inside the cell?
Oh yeah, larvae.
So that's, and those are in the middle of the frame. If they were going to swarm, there would be a bunch of those cells along the bottom bar or along the top bar like this other frame.
There's one down here.
Yeah, that's queen cell. I think I'm going to leave this one alone, just let them go ahead and raise a new queen if they want. I might look in that colony again and see if I can find the old queen, but I'm not seeing a lot of eggs elsewhere right now. So that was our first tip. You can see if they're putting royal jelly inside there.
Oh my goodness. So the white.
Now why is this one capped still?
Well, because the queen would be going from the larva stage to a pre-pupa
Oh, so there's
stage.
something in that.
So they're done feeding her, so they capped it over. So she's going to stay in there and eat and finish developing.
So if you couldn't find your queen, can you leave that and she would become the queen?
Right,
bee?
these would be the new queens, right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
They kind of follow this pattern, kind of this moon shape of brood here, and then honey in the corners.
Right, this kind of a crescent shape. So honey's in the corner, and then there's a ring of pollen around that, and then brood in the middle.